Welcome in, Lax fans, to the Utah Lacrosse Report podcast. I'm your host, Tim Haslam. My guest today is Corner Canyon head coach Jeff King. In this episode, we talk about his lifelong connection to lacrosse, coaching in New York, Pennsylvania, and Utah, taking over the program, and what makes Corner Canyon so unique. We also talked about his sons Jon and Rhett and their college experience, and the connection with the Northwestern Band of the Shoshone Nation. Hope you enjoy the show. Welcome to the show, Coach. How are you?
Great. I'm great. Thank you. Thanks for having me, Tim.
Yeah, thanks for joining me. I knew we were in the 2 weeks prior, which means you might have a little more time on your hands to sit down and do a podcast. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, I do. I have a little bit of time. So we have the, captain's practices later in the evening, and I think we're on the verge of a snowstorm here. So I don't know quite what that means for later this
Sure.
week. You kind of knew with such a great winter weather-wise that it would snow at some point, and probably right before we have tryouts, it'll snow.
Of
So
course, the
yeah.
timing is never right when it snows. But I think we'd all welcome it at this point, even if it meant delaying a little bit of lacrosse. But first question I ask all my guests: when did you start playing lacrosse?
Well, my dad was a lacrosse coach, and I grew up in upstate New York. And I always tell people it's a little different, growing up outside of Syracuse, because I think lacrosse is one of the first things that we do. So I don't remember when I wasn't playing lacrosse. So probably I know there are pictures of me playing, like 3 or 4, and then we didn't have growing up kind of the organized lacrosse club scene that they have now. And I was a ball boy for my dad's team at Cortland High School from a pretty young age, from probably like 6 years old and up. Kind of going to practice every day and just being around the team and that kind of thing. So I guess you can say it was kind of in my blood to kind of be where I am at this point. But yeah, I've had so many great memories of those teams back in the early '80s that my dad had at Cortland High School. So it was pretty cool.
And growing up in upstate New York, like you said, you're around the game. It's just something that every kid does, right? What are some of the memories that stand out from your childhood playing lacrosse?
Just I grew up in Cortland, and Cortland and Homer, two towns right next to each other. I remember having, some summer lacrosse, and we had some great players in our area. And I think the one thing that I always value is the fact that there were some really good players that played at Hobart, played at Syracuse, and they always would take the time to teach younger kids how to play. And there wasn't an agenda. It wasn't a moneymaker for them. They just wanted to pass the game along. And I think that's something that I remember the most about growing up where I did and being fortunate to be in that area. Some of the other great memories I have are, playing in high school at Cortland. We won a state championship in 1988 over a team from Long Island that was heavily favored to to beat us, and they didn't. That was a great memory, and I have a lot of guys on that team who I still am in really close touch with. Andy Shea, the coach at Yale, being one of them, and several others that have gone on to do various things in the business world and the lacrosse world that are just really great people. So those are the greatest things I remember about playing lacrosse at a young age.
And then you're playing through the youth, you playing through high school. At what point did you say that or decide that you wanted to play college lacrosse?
I think I always wanted to play college lacrosse. I think growing up in upstate New York, my dad had put a lot of players, in college, playing at various places. But the number one place that most of his players ended up going was to play at Hobart College, which is where I played. It was, close to home. They had some, obviously, when I was growing up, Hobart was a great team. We had a lot of national championships packed under our belt there. And I used to get taken to Boswell Field as a young kid to watch my father's players who graduated from his high school play for Hobart, and I always wanted to play there. So that was sort of my dream, to go do that, and I did. So it was pretty neat.
And you're at Hobart. You're playing all these Division I schools. You're the big man on campus. What's the best memory from playing at Hobart?
Once again, I think, everyone always asks these great memories. And I think, I certainly remember the national championship games um, but more than anything, just the relationships that were developed as a result of playing lacrosse and being around that community. I think are the most important things that this game has to offer. And it's kind of different. I feel like it's different than other sports. And I played football in high school as well. And just I just look back at those relationships from Hobart as well that were just really, integral to who I am as a person. And whether it was from Coach O'Hara, or from just playing with guys like I mean Billy Miller is probably one of the best lacrosse players to ever play. No one would probably know who that name is at this point, but a Team USA player when I was playing, and he's a great player as well. And even to the point of Coach Tambroni at Penn State, who I played with at Hobart as well, and now is coaching my own son, which kind of brings it a lot of full circle to us.
Yeah, and we'll certainly get to that. Believe me, the question though, kind of following this timeline, you graduate from Hobart. How did you and what did you do between then and coming to Utah?
Yeah, so I had a lot of great coaching opportunities. My first, well, when I was in grad school, at Syracuse University, I had the opportunity to go coach at West Genesee High School in 1998 as an assistant for Coach Masser. Legendary coach. He doesn't take many assistants on, and I was really excited to have that opportunity. We had a phenomenal team that year. And really, I didn't say much. I really just sat back and tried to absorb as much lacrosse as I could. I learned. I mean, it was like drinking water through the fire hose. Just the amount of lacrosse that I learned from Coach Masser and from Coach Deegan um, at West Jenny, just amazing. And even to this day, it's funny because people always ask me, "What does West Jenny do?" I mean, everybody, anyone who's coached has heard, like the West Jenny drill and all that, um, and I always used to give the same answer. And what I learned the most was it wasn't like we did anything different. We just did more of it. And we focused on trying to reach that level of perfection. And it was drill after drill. And some people might say it was mundane, but I think there's some perfection to be found in the mundane at times.
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, like you said, if you've ever coached, you've run the West Jenny drill. You go and you coach there. You're getting your grad degree at Syracuse.
Yeah.
Where'd you end up next?
Yeah, so after that, I became a head coach at Rush Henrietta High School in Rochester, New York. Another another great opportunity to to take over a program that was a little down, well, quite a bit down in terms of their record over the last couple of years that I got there, and try to build it back up. I was pretty green in terms of the coaching. I mean, I'd coached at Geneva High School as an assistant for a few years, and I coached at um, once again, I coached at West Jenny, but that leap into that Section 5 was a great leap. But I learned a lot from being a head coach, mostly about sort of like administration, dealing with parents, dealing with kids that maybe weren't playing quite as much. So it was a really interesting experience for me, and kind of solidified my decision to go into this coaching field. So I was pretty excited to do it. And so I worked at Rush Henrietta for 3 years, and then I got married, and I moved back to Syracuse. And I coached at Fayetteville Manlius High School as an assistant for 1 year, and we actually had a really good team. Once again, Fayetteville Manlius, West Jenny, kind of traditional rivals in upstate New York. So but another great opportunity to coach with some really good coaches and Coach Canale, and once again learn more about the game. And I feel like as an assistant coach, and other coaches who are in this field probably realize it by now, but I feel like as an assistant coach, sometimes you actually get to coach more than you do as a head coach. If you're a positional coach, you get to focus on your area of expertise and become better at that. So I really enjoyed my time at Fayetteville Manlius, and then after that, I moved to State College, Pennsylvania, where my wife took a job as a doctor. And I started down there, and there wasn't really a lacrosse team. And this is where my passion for the game really kicked in. I was teaching at State College High School, and I had three or four kids who came up to me and said they were really interested in starting a lacrosse club. And I was like, all right, let's do it. So um, we started a club, and we were able to get together about 15 kids that first year, and that was in 2002, I think it was. And we started a club team, and we went and played some games with some schools that were around State College, Pennsylvania, some just around that area. And at that time in Pennsylvania, lacrosse was still a club sport, so it was kind of loosely put together. I mean, Philly had been established for a while, but central Pennsylvania was still growing. So it was a really great opportunity to try to start something from scratch, which is something that I'm really proud of. I had myself and two other guys that um, we started coaching these kids. I think we had 15 boys, and we actually had two girls on our team. And we went and played. We played like a 10 or 12 game schedule that year that we kind of threw together at the last minute, and it really worked out well. And now, to the point, when I was there for 14, 15 years, I think it was, and I got to see the sport go from club to being sanctioned in 2009. I think in 2015 it was, we got to the state quarterfinals, and played some pretty good teams at that point down in the Philly area as well as part of our schedule. So that was sort of my baby that I'd brought up from its infancy, and then just watched it flourish, and to the point now where um, I think they've won the Mid-Penn Championship the last 2 years, and they played in the state champion or the state playoffs for the last couple of years as well. So really kind of a neat thing. And I do know some of the kids that from before I'd left Pennsylvania were really obviously very young when I left, but I do remember some of their parents, and I do go back to State College quite a bit, and I watch some of the high school games. And I'm really proud of what I accomplished there. And then obviously to on to Utah, where my wife she took a job here in Utah, and we decided to live in Draper. And I met Aaron at Wingnuts one day, and he said, "Do you want to coach?" And I said, "Sure, I'm definitely up for coaching." So, Aaron got me in at Corner Canyon, and I've been at Corner Canyon ever since. So that's kind of the timeline, how things
No,
went
yeah.
down.
I love it. That's perfect. That's exactly what I was looking for. Part of that you mentioned being an assistant coach, you actually end up coaching more than maybe being the head coach. And I always remember Coach Ika and to some extent Coach Broska always saying, hey, I'm just here for the admin. I'm going to let these other guys coach. So I guess my question for you is now, as you're the head coach, do you find
Right.
yourself coaching more or less?
I actually I tried to I kind of have been able to balance it pretty well. I mean, I obviously I've been at corner for this is going on my eighth or ninth year. And as a head coach, yeah, there's a certain amount of administrative work, but um I tend to coach the offense now a little bit more, but when I was an assistant with Aaron, I coached the defense for the first few years, and then I flipped to the offense. I was kind of trying to balance it where I didn't want to coach my own children. So
Hmm.
when John was an offensive player, I tended to coach the defense, and then when Rhett went to the defense, I coached the offense. So just kind of flipping back and forth. And it's nice to have that balance. So I do find myself with a hand in each of those, but I've been blessed at Corner Canyon to have some of the greatest assistant coaches in Garrett Michaeli, Garrett Bullitt, Dave Michaeli, Parker Ika. As a head coach, I have some really, really good assistant coaches for sure.
Yeah, and corner's been dominant the last, oh, I don't know how many years, 10 years or so. When did they begin? When did they break off from Alta? Do you remember the year?
Yeah, so it's funny. I have two lacrosse shafts that are signed by they called it Team One
Hmm.
in 2013. So I believe that was the first team. I think the spring of 2014, maybe. So yeah, 2013 or 2014, I think is when they split off from Alta. So yeah.
And they've had phenomenal teams ever since. And so, like, my question for you is, sometimes when there's a head coach change, things change, right? But for all intents and purposes, corner is on the same trajectory that it's been since it started, really, and that's upward. What has led to the program itself being so successful?
I think, and I always say this to the boys at the beginning of the season that they stand on the shoulders of those that were there before them, and they don't take that lightly. There's a lot of work that goes in. I could probably go out to that lacrosse field on any given day, and I'll see a kid with a bag of balls just working on shooting, or a defenseman with a ladder working on footwork, and I think they take the sport serious enough to realize that, hey, my brother had that great opportunity. I'd like to have the same opportunity to play for a state championship and to be one of the top teams, if not the top team in Utah. So I think they don't take that lightly, and I think that's part of the success of what we've had over the years. And I think between from Mark Davis to Aaron to myself, I think we see ourselves as sort of we're steering a ship, but that ship has been established for a while, so it's kind of neat.
Yeah, and there's a lot to be said for that. A lot of tradition built in, and like you said, a lot of work done by prior generations for sure. What are some of the things that makes Corner Canyon unique lacrosse wise? I know that there's the work that you do with the native tribe up in Idaho, but you want to touch on that, and then anything else that you feel is different from other schools.
Yeah, I think each of the players on our team recognize that they're playing for something bigger than just themselves, and um, we tend to carry. We're getting up to tryouts here, and I always have a lot of kids try out, and we I spend a lot of time with culture, trying to develop our culture, and we have an all in, we not we, and do your job has always been our kind of pillars that we have here, and we're constantly trying to reinforce those and have players reinforce those with each other. So that's certainly a part of what we do. Um, we try to do a fair amount of community work. We just had, I think it was 2 weeks ago, like 2 Saturdays ago, with I Am Lax. We just did a learn to play clinic, and we had boys and girls from Draper come in, and Matt Kenning, the girls coach, and myself, and we had a bunch of the boys and a bunch of the girls kids there running the clinic, kind of giving back to the game. And I think the kids realize that as well. And we're trying to teach the kids to have, number one, lacrosse is the most fun that you can have playing the sport, I think. And I think that if we can get that promoted to the younger levels, then once they pick up the stick, it's addictive. They just love playing, and you'll see it at halftime of our games when kids line up to do the shot contests and kids sign up to play youth lacrosse in Draper. It's a pretty big deal. So it's kind of a really neat thing.
Yeah, and then touch on just the work that you do with the tribe in Idaho.
Yeah, so with the Shoshone, with the Northwestern Band of the Shoshone, for the last, I think it's 5 years now, we've gone up to their cemetery and we basically spend a lot of time cleaning it up. It's it was a burial site mostly for young women and children that were a part of the Bear River Massacre, um, and also, the tribe has tried to reclaim a lot of that cemetery. So there are some more current burial sites on there. So the boys spend a lot of time learning about history from Rios Picari, who's kind of the tribal elder. And we clean up the cemetery. In fact, we've identified over I'm trying to think. They over the last 5 years, they said we've identified hundreds of burial sites, and they use some sonar that digs down under the earth, and they kind of gave us a plot to look for. But we're really looking for kind of mounds of dirt, and it's a really I think a unique relationship. We do a blessing of our team with Rios, and now even some of the people that are part of the tribe, they'll come out and they'll help us, and we'll all work together at cleaning up that cemetery. So I think the kids really appreciate the opportunity to be a part of that, and it's a unique opportunity to just learn some history and be a part of something. Once again, we're a part of something that's just bigger than ourselves.
Yeah, definitely. And it's something that, I caught my eye a couple years ago when you started doing it. And, definitely something cool, something unique, right? It's a unique service project. It's a unique relationship that you've built with the Shoshone, which, is really cool. And I think, Coach King, the cool part for me is that, um, you're definitely one of the top programs in the state and have been for years. And to see the selfless aspect of it as well is pretty cool, because not every program has that or promotes it as well as you guys do, for sure.
No,
Um,
and once again, like I think the kids more than anything recognize that you have to give back, and that's certainly a part of it. And lacrosse can be a vehicle for a lot of things, and it's created this relationship with the Shoshone, um, and Brad Pentel and Rios Picari are two really great people, they've actually come to our field and done some blessings for us. We've had a lot of hard times in our lacrosse family over the last couple years, and they've certainly been a part of our healing process as well.
Very cool. To switch gears a little bit, a couple questions about this year's team. How do
Sure.
you guys pick captains?
Typically, it was weird because we've had captains that we've had the team choose. We've had captains where coaches have appointed leaders, and over time, in my view, I think you'll see captains rise through your practices as you work through your off season and into your season, and that's kind of where we've chosen our captains from. Um, so and it's not always been, the greatest player on the field, but we feel like it's the player that represents us as a group. And there are games where we'll have a game captain, and we'll have our regular captains as well. So I'd like to say that it's somewhat appointed by coaches, but at the same time, we've seen leaders rise through the ranks as we've kind of worked in our practices throughout the fall and into the winter, and then obviously up until this point, right before tryouts.
Yeah, definitely. And it's one of my favorite things to ask coaches is about their captains, because every coach has a different philosophy. Every team does it differently. So thanks for sharing that.
Sure.
Um, Also, just talk about what you can expect. You mentioned tryouts are coming up. What can we expect from this year of Corner Canyon?
Yeah, I have a really solid senior class. I think this might be one of the classes that won a championship when they were in youth lacrosse and worked their way up. Um, we've certainly lost some really good players from last year's team, no doubt. But we have an offense that's going to be really strong. I think Ren Nielsen, Ashton Brown, Pearson DeGracie are all solid players who are going to step up offensively for us. Campton Dutton is another one that's going to be a good player for us. Luke Fisher, and defensively, people probably are excited that I'm breaking in a whole new defense, including a goalie, and I think defensively. Tanner Adamson certainly is going to anchor that defense along with some younger players and Maddox Green. And I do have the luxury of having some really good. I place a pretty good premium on defensive midfielders, and I have two really good ones in Cam Wade and in Cole Bonham. So defensively, I actually think we're going to be solid. I do like our team speed on defense. I think we might be team speed wise faster than we were last year on defense, which is pretty interesting, other than maybe at goalie. So. But Jack is a fast goalie, so I have Jack Rasmussen in cage, and he last year he played goalie for us last year on our JV team. He got into quite a few varsity games, and he actually he was a sprinter on the track team as well. So we have some speed there, which is interesting.
Yeah, no, that's very cool. I remember talking to Coach Lavoie years and years and years ago, and his feeling then, I don't know if it's changed now, but is that your goalie should be one of the most athletic players on the field. So definitely putting that to the test this year. Um,
Sure, sure.
we've talked a little bit about your kids, Jon and Rhett. My question isn't necessarily specifically about them, but you've had two sons essentially go through the recruiting process.
Right.
John's playing at Penn State and Rhett's committed to Denver. What's something that you've learned along that process? I mean, you've been around the game, your entire life. Is there something new that you found out, or what advice would you give to people listening who, are about to embark on that journey or are in that journey?
Yeah, it's funny because I do have a lot of parents and that ask me that very question. And I think the one thing I will say is if you're a really good lacrosse player, I think they like college coaches will be able to find you. But I think given our geographic location, you have to go after it a little bit. You have to get out there and you have to go to the show times. You have to probably play on some club teams where you will catch someone's eye. And I think as a parent of an athlete, my kids were their own best advocates. They sent the emails, they made the phone calls, and they put together the highlight films. And, with the help of some of their club coaches and the help of Aaron and myself, I think, they were able to get to where they wanted to be. So I think, you have to trust the process a little bit, and sometimes that's hard. And I also realized, after, I've coached in different places, and I've had players from Pennsylvania that went on to play Division 1, Division 3 lacrosse as well. Um, you have to kind of do your due diligence as an athlete and a student, ultimately to get to that highest level, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the thing that I love, about your boys, Penn State and Denver are very different schools, right? But
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
they've found their niche, and John is obviously excelling there, and I'm excited for Rhett to see what he can do when he eventually gets to Denver. Last question, Coach. I have coached lacrosse before. It's a grind. What keeps you coming back year after year, practice after practice, to the lacrosse field to coach these guys?
I just love the challenge of trying to mold a team and see the product that you get. I mean, I think I've had a lot of success, obviously coaching, and uh, but it's always kind of comes back to, and I keep saying this, but it comes back to sort of the relationships you develop with the kids. I mean, you get to see a kid from typically from ninth grade up, up through graduation. And then, hopefully that relationship continues after graduation. But, that's what brings me back every year. I'm like, oh, maybe this will be it. And then, I'm like, I want to see where this kid ends up, and that's really what it's all about to me. And, the championships and all that, they're great and all, but I really, some of my greatest relationships are with kids that you know, picked up a lacrosse stick for the first time when they were in 11th grade and decided, hey, I want to come and play. And then all of a sudden, they're like, this game is awesome. And then, it just kind of goes from there. And I just love seeing that enthusiasm in people when they find something they're passionate about.
I love that answer, right? Passion will keep you going, no matter how tough the times get, and how monotonous coaching can get. That passion will keep you there, and I really love that answer, Coach. Thanks for joining me today. I really appreciate it. Best of luck this season, and I'm sure I'll see you on the sidelines.
Yeah, thanks, Tim. And please don't hesitate to come down and say hi, and best of luck to you as well.